Hello, I will show you how to make a travel sketch in 4 videos. The second step shown in this video will be how to redraw the pencil sketch with ink markers. The markers I use are fine liners of different whites from 005 to 0405. The brand I use is Uniping, but there are also different marks in the market. The first rule to add some ink to the drawing is to start with the foremost objects, those objects which are in front of the rest. This is because the lines that these objects have will be in front of other lines in the background, so they will hide them. I started with this boat that you can see on the left. It's a boat with 2 persons there, so we can draw the persons with just one head and the body, and draw as many details as possible of the boat. We won't have the space to make the faces, but just the bodies, the heads and the arms, and maybe a shirt or a t-shirt. When we stop this, when we finish this first object, we will continue with the background, which is cut by this first object. We can then draw another object which is in front, which are these wooden poles in the bottom left corner. We will make the lines, we will draw them, but we don't have to be 100% exact to what you are seeing in the photo. You can make different poles with different shapes and different colors to give some variety to the drawing. So you can just make a quick search in Google for Pallini in Venice, and you will have lots of designs, because each big family has their own colors, their own shapes that are shown at the wharfs in front of the buildings. So we can just make some sketches of normal regular wooden poles and some other different shaped poles with different colors. We will then go to another object which is behind. In this case there are the other boats, small boats that you can see there on the left. This will be smaller, so the figures will be smaller also and less detailed, but we can make a general shape, maybe a silhouette of the boat, to give an impression that there are persons there. We can make some gondolas there, maybe only the profile, the silhouette. Some other Pallinis, which in this case are just straight lines with no detail at all. And we can make some other small boats which are left there at the shore. We will continue the shore, the bottom of the buildings. We can make some embankments there, maybe some gates, some other Pallini, some other boats here and there. We continue the line in the extreme, the left extreme. And now, when we have finished the bottom, let's say the shore, we will go with the buildings, the main buildings we see here, the horizon, and some trees on the horizon in another island. When we give this second step of lines in ink, we can make more accurate details, small details that will define the accuracy of the drawing. So we can, in this step, check for some bigger images of these points. This is the Dogana point, the buildings of the customs. So you can look for it in Google and make it more detailed than that you can see in this photo. Now we can go for the buildings. We start redrawing the pencil lines we have done before. We can add some more details. We can correct the inclination, the shape of the lines. Then we can continue with a big dome, add some details, the shape of the lower floors of the dome. We can make all the roofs with different shapes. And at this first step, we are going to draw basically the shapes, the outlines of the buildings. Why? Because it's a way to separate, to have very clear where are the buildings and where should they be placed, and not place some windows that are from one building to another. So have it clear where building ends and the other starts. We do this little altana on top of this roof. It's like a platform, a wooden platform on top of many Venice buildings. Then we continue with the church at the bottom, and we keep doing the roofs. I do these basic lines with 0.1 or 0.2 marker. Is a really thin, very delicate marker. In this way, I can do in this size of paper a lot of details. If I would be using 0.8, 0.7, the details will be less because it's much thicker. So we do all the buildings, and when we finish the buildings, we start with the church with all the towers. We can then add some finer details, maybe the crosses on top. We can add some statue, and these two main domes have statues on top, and the towers have crosses, so we can just make those details in this step of the drawing. We can add some shadows inside the domes to give some depth, some volume there. We can make double lines in some parts of the dome, the other domes, the crosses. Some people ask me if I do all these lines with a ruler or just by hand. As you can see, I do them by hand, but you can do it with the ruler, at least the main lines, so you are sure that they are straightforward. And with some practice, you can get straight lines just without the ruler. We add some small details there at the top. And we add those windows on top with some shadows inside. Then we do all the rest of the dome with more details. You have to avoid always doing too many pencil lines, because it's useless if you're gonna do the ink work afterwards. And besides, it's not convenient, because if you do a lot of pencil work, when you draw it in ink, you will pass your hand on top of the paper, and it could get dirty because of the pencil. At the dome we can do some texture details with you could do it with a thinner marker, maybe a 005, 003. If you don't have it, you just press a little lighter this in the same lines, and you can get a more thin line for these details. We can start with the windows on the buildings. You can make just like squares to mark the place of the windows, because at that size you can do a lot of details in each window. So you just have to give the impression that there is a window there and there is some shades inside, but you can really go into fine details there. We mark the floor separations always, and the main group of windows, which are in a different color. Once we have the shapes of the outer shapes of the windows, we can do some small details there, maybe only shadows. At this step you should be as concise, as simple as possible. Keep all the details to a minimum level of detail, because when you add the color, you will even add some more detail. But normally, the simpler you do the drawing, the best will be the result. So try to avoid unnecessary details, just the only details to give an impression of what the building is, of how it is built. These windows have like a small circle on top, so this will be shown in this drawing, but we don't go further with details. You can make the main gates at the lower floor a bit darker, a bit bigger, so it gives the impression that those are bigger holes on the wall of the building. We continue with the other buildings. In this case, the windows are just small squares or even lines, vertical lines. We add some other details that would help us make this building different from the other one. And basically, in this case, I do some balconies, which is like a normal window, but adding a bigger square at the bottom. And the intention of this drawing all these windows is more than defining each window, to give a texture of all these buildings with some windows and gates on them. We had some darker shadows at the gates at the lower. Maybe some windows have a slightly different shape, which is interesting to give some variety to the drawing, not doing all the windows with the same shape, but defining slightly different windows, maybe some balconies here and there, maybe a balcony with which is a little wider with one or two gates. So it will, at the end, it will be, the impression will be a lot of windows nearly similar, all of them. But if you do some of them slightly different, it gives the drawing a variety and a rhythm that it doesn't have if you do all the windows the same, with the same sizes, with the same distance between them. So try to add some different details here and there to give each building its personality. This building here is a little wider, so we can make bigger gates and make some special detail like this. It has a square mosaic at the middle, so we can outline that to give the building a certain difference with the others. Okay, so details are kept at minimum, just to draw the shapes of the buildings, of the windows and the gates. Try to make the gates a little different from one from another, maybe add some bars at the balconies. We can do also the textures of the roofs, although they will be more defined with the colors, but you can add some lines on top of the roofs, so they are a little more similar to what you see in a normal roof. And once we finish all these drawings and all these details, we must erase all the lines that, pencil lines that won't be useful anymore. So try to maybe not erase 100% of them, but most of them should be erased. I hope you like the result. And in the next video we will explain how to add color to this pencil ink and keep advancing in this travel sketch. Thanks a lot.